Hello again. Welcome back. Lots to talk about today. Yesterday, if you didn't catch it, we did more of a full podcasty style episode. I laid out why I think the NBA is the best league around, and then the NFL came out today and made me absolutely think it even more. And I'll talk about that in a second. But if you're interested in that, I think we might do that more often on Wednesdays, unless something big happens. I'm going to go for Wednesday being the pick a topic and just rant about that for 1 hour a day rather than box score diving and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. MikeTheMush on Twitch, MikeTheMush on YouTube. Watch it wherever you want. Follow and subscribe on both if you can. That'd be cool. And I think I might put that one out as an episode of the Link podcast also, which you can find on Spotify, Apple. It's where I go for all things non-sports, if you're into that. So check it out. We'll talk about that if I end up doing it. A couple of stories to hit on today, but before we dive into those and the picks from last night, which hit again, bingo, good stuff. We're hot. We're 5 for 5 if you don't count football on our last 5. Just throw football out the window. That's the mountain we have to climb, I understand, but we celebrate this nonetheless. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the Zak Stacy video that came out. If you didn't see it, I don't know if you want to. It's really disgusting and violent. But he abused a woman. We don't have to get into the nitty-gritty details of it all. He's a former NFL player, if you don't know. He's a running back. He was on the Rams. Didn't last in the league that long. None of that matters. It was horrifying to see. And I will preface this rant, which I'll try to temper so it don't go on forever. But I will say that since he's not in the league anymore, I'm not necessarily bashing the NFL for this situation. There's not a whole lot they can do. I do wish they would come out and just make a statement, a strong statement. And I wish that strong statement would go alongside a zero tolerance policy for this kind of stuff. But they're probably not going to do that. And they don't seem to ever do that. So I get that they can't suspend a guy that's not in the league or on a team and representing the game anymore, but I would like to hear them say something, and the radio silence is just kind of deafening because every time this does happen with a player in the league, they seem to get a slap on the wrist and just look the other way. We can talk about the Antonio Browns, the Tyreek Hills, the Kareem Hunts, the Ray Rices, but this just reminds you of the pattern that exists with tons of NFL players, and you don't see it in the other leagues nearly as much. It happens. It definitely happens all over the place and outside of sports, for sure. And some of this has to fall on law enforcement to be better at dealing with these kind of cases, investigating them quickly, getting down to it, not letting a year go by, and really trying to figure out the truth. And then once they do, swift, harsh punishment. And I don't say that to necessarily, sounds weird, but I don't say it to necessarily deter it from happening more because I think it's going to happen anyway. But in the case of the NFL, you can have some serious punishments laid down that not only might deter people from doing it in the first place, but I don't think that will happen. I think people make mistakes and bad decisions, and some people are just bad, and the NFL has a lot of them around and will do bad things. But what you can do if you're the league is just not support it and not have those people under contract and not have those people represent the shield. You can just bounce them. If anyone from this point on, what I would want the NFL to do is come out tonight, make a statement that they saw the video, they are upset about it, that this is a player that they supported. There's nothing they can do about it now, but in the future, if this is to happen to any of the players, there will be swift and quick judgment and action. And they haven't said that. Maybe they will. And if you're looking back on this and they already have, then great. We're all happy. But they don't seem to do it. And when Tyreek Hill in college has a domestic abuse case that he pleads guilty to, and then he has 2 more while in the league, including allegedly breaking his son's arm and talking to the mother in scary ways, and he gets 0 suspension at all. It's alarming. And anytime there's evidence, there needs to be quick action. The MLB did it this year with Trevor Bauer. There was a ton of evidence there. It was a really ugly situation. They put him on the exempt list. He has not played. And I assume he will not play until it gets sorted out. Now, if these people are innocent, then you reinstate them. And you pay them the money they should have had while they were gone. And yeah, their team missed them in the meantime, and that's a bummer. And they missed some time, and their career is impacted. But if that's the downside, then we definitely do it. Because some of them are not innocent. And that's a harsh way to look at it necessarily, but it's probably necessary at this point to turn the train around. I don't want to see this happen again, this time with the video, same way it happened with Ray Rice, and he did leave the league. And for some players, it's so inconsistent to me. There's a 6-game mandatory suspension for domestic abuse if it gets convicted. But there's nothing that says they have to remove the player while it's getting investigated, and I don't really love that. So the MLB did it better, and I wish the NFL would take that on because they seem to be dealing with these cases so much more, and we'll see what happens in the future. But if they made a statement and said, hey, next time someone's there's some evidence of this kind of stuff, there's a video, there's audio, there's something, the police investigating, whatever it is, you're on the exempt list until we figure it out, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The team will have to deal. That in itself would already be a step up in multiple ways. One, some kind of morale. And two, I would imagine there's some public PR going their way that has to matter to them somewhat, right? I realize until people stop watching the sport, and I'm guilty of it too, and so is everybody, they seem to think, at least, that they are bulletproof, and they have been to this point. Because this will happen, and guess what will happen tonight? I'm tuning into the Thursday Night Football game, and we're going to talk all about it. So I get it. I'm a hypocrite too. I wish I could quit it. But they can at least garner some positivity by being more harsh on this, right? And what's the downside? There's no shortage of superstar football players. There's no shortage of fast players. You'll find someone to replace their spot. I can't imagine people would be mad if they put people on the exempt list while they figured these things out. And then once they're off the exempt list, either they're innocent and they get back in the league and you apologize and pay them and whatever it is, or they're guilty. And as far as I'm concerned, the 6-game mandatory suspension for being guilty is ridiculous. It's a third of a season. It doesn't really have any legitimate impact, especially when players go on the IR, it's 3 games now. I think it should be a full season at least, and then having to go through groups and therapy and some kind of meetings and some programs before you're even reinstated. At least these kind of things are steps in the right direction, and I can't imagine there's any downside to the league doing this. The flip side of the argument is that Roger Goodell just works for the owners. They don't want that to happen for whatever reason. They want their players to be protected. The NFL Players Association wants their players to be protected. And law enforcement and courts don't do a good enough job with this either. So you need to fix a lot of different things. But in the next CBA, at the very least, I hope they come together and the league together with the players figures out a more harsh punishment for this kind of stuff. Because I can only imagine it would clean up the league in the long run. Wouldn't the owners want the league to be better? To be legitimately better. Not monetarily, not financially. And even if you're a selfish person for those reasons and you just want positive PR to make your valuation go up, it still works. So what's the downside? Get to it. Figure it out. That's all I'm going to say about it. But we hit picks last night, so that's cool. Let's dive right into some stories. We'll recap the picks. We'll talk about the day in the NBA yesterday, which was wild. There were a lot of things that happened. And I have a lot of picks for tonight, so stay tuned through the end. I'll give those at the end. An interesting parlay, a straight-up pick, and a long shot parlay for some big odds. So we'll have some fun with that towards the end. But there were some stories that I wanted to get to, so let's jump in. Let's see what we can get up here. Okay. There we go. All right. So, the NBA GMs are forming an association. There's a lot of investigations going on these days. The coaches already have their own association, so do the players. There's really no reason the GMs wouldn't. They want to protect themselves, which is all part of this story that we kind of just led with. I know it's not the same exact story, but when they're being investigated and they're scared of being fired by the league and the owners for one reason or another. And I think this really stems from them not being paid after they commit some kind of violations and cause. It's here somewhere. But if you want to read through it, it's on ESPN.com. And I just find it interesting that this didn't already exist. GMs weren't protected at all. Owners are protected by the league and the commissioner. Coaches are protected by the Coaches Association, and players are protected by the Players Association. There's nothing for the front office, really, which is bizarre. So hopefully this goes through, and hopefully it doesn't... hopefully they don't go too far with it like the Players Association does sometimes in protecting players that don't necessarily deserve to be protected. But this is necessary because owners are more scummy, generally, and will try to get you out of there without having to pay. Same way John Gruden is suing the NFL now because they had something like 20,000 emails and they chose 4 of his and just threw him in the fire, which burn. I don't care. I'm not saying he deserves anything. But I think his point is that you can't pick and choose. And if they had some kind of association for that, perhaps that wouldn't matter as much. So we'll see what happens with that. An interesting baseball tidbit. 2014 Detroit Tigers now have 5 Cy Young winners after Robbie Ray yesterday. And I wanted to look at the roster quickly, but I saw this on Reddit and I found it interesting. Verlander, Scherzer, Price, Porcello, and Robbie Ray. It's wild that this team didn't do better. I mean, that's got to be the only time this has ever happened. And so you look at the team, and their roster was ridiculous. They had Miguel Cabrera. They had Ian Kinsler. Castellanos was a kid, but he's very good. J.D. Martinez. Austin Jackson was pretty good at the time. Torrey Hunter was still very good. Victor Martinez. This team was stacked up. And then you look at the staff, and you're like, Robbie Ray was like a long man on this team with an 8 ERA, but he was there. But the other guys were legit. I mean, Scherzer was already Cy Young candidate. Verlander was not having a great year, but he was there. Porcello, Anibal Sanchez, David Price, Drew Smyly. Even the depth was good. It's wild. Jabba Chamberlain was solid at that time. Their bullpen wasn't great. They had Al Albuquerque. Nice. There's a name I haven't heard in a little while. But yeah, they were very solid. They had 90 wins, and then they went into the ALDS and got smoked by the Orioles. And you're like, what? This was the year the Giants ran through, one of the years anyway. But you look at these games, and Scherzer just got smacked around in this one. Let's look at that quickly. Yeah, 5 earned. He threw 7 innings. That's actually wild. It wasn't really... I mean... They never scored enough to support him, but he got through 7. That's pretty nuts. And then the bullpen blew it anyway, so it didn't matter. Joakim Soria gives up 4. But yeah, Chris Tillman. And this bullpen for the Orioles was ridiculous back then. Andrew Miller, Darren O'Day, Zach Britton, Tommy Hunter even. And Zach Britton was amazing in this series, if I remember. But they got swept. I mean, even in this game, who started this game? It had to be Verlander, right? Yeah, he gives up 3 runs. And then who was in the lineup for the Orioles? I mean, Nelly Cruz, Adam Jones, Markakis, J.J. Hardy. Oh, they had Delman Young. I feel like Delman Young had a game where he hit 3 homers on opening day, and he was the hottest fantasy ad of all time. I mean, this is going to be really hard to find, obviously. So, maybe Google. Dimitri Young. Sure. There it is. There you have it. Sometimes I'm wrong. Most of the time. Delman Young existed, though. Anyway, yeah. Just found it interesting that team got smoked by the Orioles. What happened in the third game? Bud Norris deals. David Price also deals. But Orioles bullpen shuts it down. Yeah, wild. Really wild. Nelson Cruz hit 2 homers. Yeah. It's interesting how you can look back and they have 5 Cy Youngs and they just do absolutely nothing. With a dominant lineup, too. Very weird. So that was an interesting tidbit. Also, I saw that minor league baseball, or Major League Baseball, the organization, is giving free housing now to minor league baseball players. I don't know the exact details about that and who gets it and who doesn't and all that kind of jazz, but I like it. I definitely like it. I feel like it should have happened a long time ago. I mean, it's a step towards the leagues taking care of their players and their pipeline a little better. And even if you just look at it as an investment, like, these players will have a better life and have a better chance to improve and one day make your league better. That's still absolutely worth it. And the NFL should take notes, as they should, from every league. And if you want to hear more about the differences between the leagues and my opinion on them, go back to yesterday on YouTube, Mike the Mush. It was a good one. We talked about the NBA. Okay. This is a hilarious football scandal, I guess. It was so funny. I brought it up on Twitter. I'm not going to play it because I feel like there's some copyright issues because these are long videos and they show the entire ESPN broadcast, so it'll probably get taken down if I do that. There's 3 parts. But you can look at it at Timothy Burke's Twitter, at Bubba Prog, BUBBAPROG. It has all the audio. They are basically openly bashing the refs for being absurdly biased towards Iowa State in a Texas Tech football game in which Texas Tech was dominating and Iowa State got all the way back because a million penalties were called. And it was truly hilarious. Not only was it hilarious, but they were mostly right. There were some really horrific calls and reffing, and we've talked about it a couple times on stream already, how, like, if you needed to make a case that games were being fixed, there's been a couple of them in the NFL, and now this one in college, that you could point to and be like, this kind of looks like what it is. So, who knows? Maybe there are, and they should be critical of them if this kind of stuff is happening. Isn't this exactly what people want to hear when they're listening to the game? At least my demographic does. And the Big 12 is forcing them to not call the games, and they're coming down on them because they're trying to protect the sport. I guess this, like the NFL thing, is so short-sighted. Do what people want to do. You should have people that are betting on the game announce the game. They'll be so into it and say crazy stuff, and it will actually be entertaining. Take notes. Be entertaining. This is funny. This is interesting. No one's getting hurt. The refs are doing a poor job and deserve to have their feet held to the fire. I don't even see the problem with it. If he's cursing and stuff on air, then that's different. But, I mean, look at this. Hopefully you guys can see this. This right here, he surely looks down with the ball, and they overturned it and said he wasn't. Even Texas Tech tweeted out after the game, the final score can't be overturned, and they barely won, and didn't cover, by the way. Did not cover. Which is the real story here, because if games are being, I don't know about fixed, but points shaven or whatever, or added, or whatever you want to call it, I love that the announcers are willing to go into this kind of stuff. It's like how everyone freaked out when Al Michaels used to talk about gambling, and now it's all they do on air. Like, just let these people announce the game. It was actually fun, and people are talking about it. It's not the worst thing in the world. Texas Tech should back them up and make them announce anyway. It'd be awesome. All right. Let's talk hoops. We'll start with the Bucks game. We'll start with the bets that I had from yesterday, which was a 3-team NBA teaser. We did hit it. It was the Bucks against the Lakers, -4, which we covered. It was the Suns -3.5 against the Mavericks. No Luca, which we covered, but we need to talk about. And it was the Bulls +6.5 at the Blazers, which got dicey somehow, but we hit it. And we stay hot, and we'll have more for you later. But Giannis dropped 47, I'm sorry. Giannis almost dropped 50, but the most impressive thing, 18 for 23. And really, he was doing whatever he wanted from the get-go. They couldn't stop him at all. Chris Middleton was back. He didn't shoot well at all, but it's another option that forces you to defend around the perimeter, and you can't help on Giannis as much. Bobby Portis has been pretty good for them. Brook Lopez will come back. This team is awesome. I don't care that they're 7-8. Like, maybe they won't get the 1 seed because they've stopped absolutely ripping teams apart early in the year because of COVID protocols and injuries, but I just think this team is really, really built for it. They look better than last year to me at sometimes, or like I can see the way that they will be better. But the Lakers competed in this one a lot. I mean, they were down 10 at halftime. They were right in it, and then the Bucks went on like a 10-0 run at the end of the half, or maybe an 8-0 run. And it was a 10-point game, and I'm like, all right, that's the end of it. This one should be safe. And then the Lakers stormed back. They win the third quarter by 9. Horton Tucker's been amazing for them. He's going to be key for them, stretching the floor and being able to do a little off the bounce. He can really rebound it. He's really good. And Westbrook only turned it over 3 times. So if you can get that out of him, you will take it. You don't care about the triple-doubles. He had 15 assists. Anthony Davis, again, he's just like, I just haven't seen it from him. I need to see a big game from him. He's supposed to be ultra superstar, right? Like, he's supposed to be the one dueling Giannis. Like, not that he's going to be as good as Giannis, but he should be on that level. And it's just like, I don't know. I just don't see it. And their bench we've talked about. We've talked about them to death. But them competing in this game at Milwaukee without LeBron, and while you're still trying to figure yourself out, I don't think this is a negative for the Lakers. It's actually kind of good. But 47 for Giannis, I mean, I haven't seen anyone be this good in, I don't know. I mean, he is so far ahead of the league right now. And I know I can make cases for KD and Steph winning the MVP, and I have already. But if Giannis is healthy and wants to, he can do this whenever. It's just about running the marathon and not a sprint. But it feels like there's no one in the NBA that can do anything to him now. He has figured it out. He has figured out the paint game, the moves down there. He's kind of understood how strong he is. And he's like 26. It's really terrifying, the things that he's doing. Yeah, he's 26. He's going to turn 27 in 3 weeks. Happy early birthday, Giannis. I don't know what you do about him. I still honestly put the Bucks as the #1 title contender right now. Because until you can shut him down, and they have a good supporting cast, they really do. Drew Holiday's perfect. He plays defense. Grayson Allen is an upgrade for them. Pat Connaughton is really good on the wing. George Hill, good backup. They can go get another bench player. I don't need Semi Ojeleye or Jordan Nwora. I mean, they're fine for the regular season for depth. Bobby Portis is good. Brook Lopez will come back. They get one more swing shooter on the bench, and they're going. Like, who's going to stop them? I don't see it. It should be them and the Nets again if the Nets ever get to full strength. But the way they're playing right now, the Bucks will handle them. Like, are the Wizards, Bulls, Heat gonna do anything to the Bucks? I don't know. I mean, the Heat are good. The Hornets don't play any defense. The Bucks will smash them. The Cavs are a nice story. Knicks will get smashed. Sixers, if they're ever healthy, it would be interesting to watch Embiid and Giannis go at it, if that would be the case. Imagine Giannis would opt to defend Embiid. I don't think they would. I think they would just use Brook Lopez there and stuff, but I just don't see anyone. It's pointless even going through the teams because there's no one in the league that can handle him. There just isn't. I would love to get Warriors Bucks, just clash of styles. That would be really cool. It would be like almost what it would be like to see Shaq against the Warriors. Like, can they spread it out far enough that this matters? Although Giannis can defend the perimeter, so I don't know if it matters. Or honestly, the Suns again, like a rematch. But I just think the Bucks are the best team in the East. I don't think it's even that close. We'll talk about the others in a second. So that was the first leg. Then you look at Mavs Suns. I mean, this game I was losing my mind about. The Suns did cover, but it was barely, and it was at the end. They win the fourth quarter by 12. They only won the game by 7. They were down 5 going into the fourth, and they stayed down most of the fourth and went on a run at the end. The Mavs didn't have Luca in this game. The Suns are at full strength and have won 10 games in a row now, and this game was wildly close. Let's not just act like this is another Suns drubbing. They had big trouble with the Mavs. I could not figure this one out. I was more confused by this game than I have been confused by any NFL game the past couple of weeks. And if you've been listening to the stream, you know I've been quite confused. Although we're going to figure it out. We're hot. We're staying confident, but humble. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jalen Brunson's a good fill-in at guard, right? Is this Ewing theory? Do we have some Ewing theory brewing with Luka Doncic? Because he dominates the ball for the Mavs. No one has a usage like he does. No one dribbles as much as he does. And he's amazing. Don't get me wrong. He's an MVP candidate. But he hasn't looked particularly in shape this season or hasn't played to his peak ability yet. And so this just looked like more of a team without him there, obviously. But even with that, I mean, they shot 50% from three. I'm watching Frank Ntilikina go 3 for 3 from three, play good defense, score 13 points. He probably never did that with the Knicks a single time. Literally never. I can't imagine he did. Yeah, I'll spell your name wrong. You don't deserve it. I always kind of liked him. I don't know why. It just never came together. Those Phil Jackson Knicks. Saw someone with a Lance Thomas Knicks shirt on today, so that was interesting. 3-pointers. He made 4 once. Look at that. Against Dallas. I should have known. Point is, not known for it. Trey Burke, another former Knick, just cooking off the bench. Yeah, I don't know. Porzingis seemed to have a little more freedom. Hardaway got a ton of shots and buried a lot of them. I just don't know how this game was close. They didn't play well offensively, the Mavs. And it didn't look like they were doing much defensively. They hung with them rebounding-wise. They out-rebounded the Suns, which is alarming when you have Ayton, Bridges, Crowder, JaVale McGee. This just seems weird. I just don't know what to make of this. And Ewing theory is interesting. Like the whole theory that the Knicks always got better when Patrick Ewing didn't play, even though it made no sense. He was always good for them, but they never won with him. And somehow the team galvanizes better when he isn't there for whatever reason, and it's almost unexplainable. That's the whole idea behind the Ewing theory, and I don't know. Does it make sense for Luka? It did in this game. They're not going to win anything without Luka, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I've never liked how this team was constructed around him. I think he deserves better. And it seems like they might deserve better also. I just don't get it. And that's with a new coach, too. Who's coaching in Dallas now? Is it Jason Kidd? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I can't imagine Jason Kidd has like just the perfect schemes to get Dallas going against the Suns without Luka. No offense. It's not really his thing. Maybe he's improved. He was on the Lakers staff for a little while. But I haven't seen it from them. They are 9-5 though, and Luka's been banged up, and like he hasn't even played that well. I don't know. Maybe there's something here. I'm just keeping an eye on it. But I mean, the Suns have 10 wins in a row. I'm not going to rag on them, but this was very alarming. Chris Paul shot terribly, 2 for 12. Booker hit a huge 3 late, and Ayton should have dominated and did. So I don't. It's hard to figure out why this game was. I mean, it's just really nothing more than they just hit a million threes. It's not much more than that. But still, you can't let this team hang around. They didn't. They covered. We sweat, though. We definitely sweat. Bulls fall to the Blazers, and they led by almost 20 in this game. Probably third quarter they were up big. Yeah, 18 here, 16, 18. 17, yeah, they're up most of the time, and then they really just blow it. They completely blow it. They're up 4 going into the fourth. They go back up to 8, and they just couldn't finish. This is what's alarming about the Bulls. Their defense fell apart in the second half. They gave up 64 points in the second half. They're very small. We've been talking about them and how good that is, that they can force teams into that. But it didn't come together tonight, and also Vucevic isn't playing, and they really need him because they're so small, and Tony Bradley just can't do the things that he can do, both on the glass, offensively, and passing, most importantly, and even defensively. I mean, he's just, he's the only big they have here. But The only person they had to contend in the paint was Nurkic. And in 23 minutes, he actually did a lot of damage. He scored 18 and 12, and you started to see how teams can do this to the Bulls if Vucevic isn't playing to his peak potential. Plus, Covington is one of the people that allows the Blazers to still play big but defend the perimeter. If you need Covington to defend Caruso and just float around as a free safety on the defense because Caruso's not going to shoot it that many times, that's probably pretty good, although Caruso was awesome. He almost had a triple-double in this game, but he didn't shoot it that well. So the Blazers are uniquely equipped for this kind of thing. And Dame, again, didn't play... No, he played very well, actually. He's starting to get it going, huh? Hopefully. He's getting back to the line more. I saw James Harden get to the line more, too. We were talking on one of the previous streams about how those guys are being hurt really bad by the new rule changes because not as many free throw attempts. And their numbers are still down because of that, and I think everyone's will stay that way if they stay consistent with the calls. But this was just like a little come-to-earth game for the Bulls when Vucevic is out. I don't think this impacts how they play generally. And the Blazers were due for a couple wins. But we had plus 6.5, so we were really sweating towards the end and got there. They were down. They were up. Levine started to take over. He makes a 3. Lillard extends the lead to 4. Levine hits a 3. They get a shot clock turnover. Good defense. It was Caruso on defense, I believe. Levine takes the lead. Lillard takes the lead back. Larry Nance takes the lead back. It was back and forth. The autoplay. And then they just kept giving them up and missing shots. They're down 3. I'm like, okay, we're getting 6.5. We should be fine, right? They hit 4. They hit 5. There's 6.5 seconds left. If he misses this shot with 5 seconds left instead of 3, they could have fouled here. They could have fouled here anyway. Thank God they didn't. It would have been 7. Woo! We escape. We escape with victory. Cash it. There was also serious reverse line movement in this game. It was Bulls +1, and then it became Bulls +3.5 before tip-off, which we talked about it with the Eagles and Broncos last week. When it goes the opposite way hard of what you think it's going and there's no real reason for it, no one got ruled out. Like, there was nothing. We knew Vucevic wasn't going to play. There was nothing that really happened, and the line just swung in an opposite direction of what you would have thought. I would think every public bettor would be on the Bulls like they have been, because the Bulls have been one of these hot teams. And it just swung the other way, and I was like, oh, God, Portland's going to win. Thank God I teased it, and thank God I did tease it. Made the right decision. Bingo. Bingo. We're good. Couple other NBA stories. Knicks lose at home to the Magic for the second time this year. Magic have 4 wins, and 2 of them have come at Madison Square Garden. This is just pathetic. There's nothing to say about it. They shot 29% from 3. Cole Anthony couldn't hit a shot to save his life, although he played well otherwise. But when he's not hitting shots, I don't understand why this team would ever really win. I don't understand why they would win anyway. They have half the talent the Knicks do. Kemba couldn't score. Fournier hasn't been able to buy a bucket, even though he averages like 19 points a game throughout his career. He just can't play for the Knicks. Their bench seems to be better than their starters are, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's awkward, and you want the starters to just figure it out so then your team could actually be, you know, like, good. RJ Barrett just can't hit jump shots. It's really, he just can't. I mean, what are his stats like now? 32%, but he just has some games where he hits them all and some games where he hits none. I just need some level of consistency. I still love the kid. I just need to see him take the leap. I thought he was doing it, and then it's just like, it's very inconsistent. I love what Obi Toppin is doing. I was totally wrong on him, though. It's just pathetic. There's just no way around it. If you trust the Knicks on any given night, you're foolish. They can beat the best team in the league for no reason and come back when down 40 against the Bucks on the road, but then they'll lose at home to the Magic twice. They're awful. They are awful. Don't get it twisted. If you see them go on a 6-game winning streak or something, just realize that they might lose to the Magic at any time. This game was really weird and interesting. I wrote it down because the Charlotte Hornets were -1 at home against the Wizards, both teams at full strength. And I found that a little bizarre because while the Wizards have been a really nice story, and are off to a hot start. I think their hottest start in a long, long time with Wes Unseld Jr. as coach. He's like coach of the year right now, if you ask me. I thought it was weird that the Hornets were only -1 because at this point, it almost doesn't matter who they're playing unless it's a superpower team, which I don't think the Wizards are just because they have a good record. I mean, it's a nice story and all, but come on. The Hornets should be bigger favorites, and they win by 10, and they looked like they controlled the game for the most part. The Wizards just could not shoot the basketball in this one, which must alarm you. Beal hasn't been great this season, but he looked good in this game. But Caldwell Pope almost threw up a goose. Dinwiddie did throw up a goose, which is crazy because he's been awesome, and Kuzma couldn't score either. So, of course, they were going to get killed. They scored 87 points, and it's 2021. It's just not going to happen. But it makes you wonder what this team is. We know what the Hornets are. They're exciting. They go as LaMelo goes, and they are pure offense and no defense. They have some players that are willing to try on defense, but this is just a team that's going to try to outscore you on most given nights. And if they play anyone real, they probably lose this game. But the Wizards have been such a good story, and you're like starting to think, like, is this the best Wizards team we've seen in, I don't know, how far back do we have to go? I mean, John Wall and Brad Beal were pretty good, I guess. And then you're going back to like Gilbert Arenas and Anton Jamison probably before that. I don't know if there's anything in between. 43 and 39 here. 49 wins in 2016-17, which was Beal Wall, right? Yep. This is the Otto Porter year before he gets paid. They have Marcus Morris, the Polish Hammer, Marcin Gortat. This team was solid. This is comparable. Like, these teams are comparable to one another, I think. And Beal is still here, so good for him. You had Oubre. Brandon Jennings was on the team. People like Tomas Satoransky in fantasy every now and then for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, before that, you got to go. When's the last time they won 50 games? Oh, we're scrolling. 78, 79. This is Unseld? This is the year after they win the finals. So it probably is, right? Yep. Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld. And now his son is coaching the team. That's the last time they had 50 wins, and now they're going to try to get back there, which is really interesting. So they've been pretty bad for a while, so it's exciting for their fans and all, but I just... They're cool. They're good. Like, Dinwiddie is great. He's high IQ point guard. He can handle the offense and allow Brad Beal to not have to do every single thing for them. And Kuzma is solid and was always underrated. Like, this team is solid. This team is the Lakers with Beal replacing LeBron and nobody replacing Anthony Davis. Like last year's Lakers. Now, what they do have for them is a way better bench and depth. Harrell is in a better position where he can actually play, and he just didn't fit on the Lakers at all. Neto is not bad. Holiday is not bad as bench guards who can give you 10, 15 minutes. Kispert is a rookie who should improve. Denny Avdia? It's hard to say, literally. But he's looked good after a couple of years not looking as good and being a high draft pick. Maybe he turns it around. They have a ton of depth, which the Lakers never had. But still... You got to look at it realistically. Like, is this team going to win a championship? I don't think we're talking about that, right? Like, so they're a 1 seed right now. It's cool. It's a good story. Like, they're good. They're not going to roll over and get killed by bad teams or anything. I like Daniel Gafford. I like their players. And they're going to get some people back. Rui Hachimura is still coming back. But just don't be, like, crazy fooled when they have games like this, because you're basically talking about substituting last year's Lakers and taking LeBron and AD out of it and putting Beal and Gafford plus a better bench. So that still is what it is. And I thought the spread was a little wonky. Pacers-Pistons. I mean, the Pacers lose to the Pistons. The Pacers are on my list of teams I have no idea what to do with at all. I stay away from their games always, but I'm always looking at their box scores because I'm like, this team should be solid, right? I don't get it. LeVert is good. Brogdon's good. Turner's good. Sabonis is good. They have some depth. TJ McConnell can play. Jeremy Lamb's still working his way back from injury. Hasn't looked that great since coming back. Goga Bitadze was supposed to be good. He was a decent pick, and he just hasn't done anything. But they're not a pushover, right? This team has some talent, and Sabonis is a legit stud. And Brogdon can play. Like, this team can play. And they have Duarte, who didn't play in this game. But they have depth. The Pistons are really bad, but Cade Cunningham has changed this team. If you watch highlights of him, it's like, oh. He shot 1 for 8 from 3, but you can tell he's starting to get confident. He had 16, 8, and 6, 2 steals, and a block. He's all over the place. He's handling the ball a lot. They need to get rid of Killian Hayes. That was a bust of a pick, it seems. Well, they don't need to get rid of him, but they just need to not rely on him quite as much. And then all of a sudden you look at this Pistons team and you're like, all right, if Cade gets the show going, you need a big man. You don't have one. I get that. Stewart can grab rebounds for now. Sadiq Bey is a good piece. Jeremy Grant is a good piece. Those 3 players, and if you can just get something out of the depth, they might have a couple more wins than you think. They're really bad, but it's cool to watch the Cade show happen. So he's really changing things for them, and I just want to keep an eye on their games more than I have before, because at least they have something now. The Cade, Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant thing is kind of cool. And if for some reason you find a team that really needs to shed a contract and get nothing in return for it, maybe the Pistons can, like, pay a center to come in there and play. They had Andre Drummond. Like, that's how they got Andre Drummond back in the day. Or they got rid of him for that reason, too. Something like that, to see what Cade can do with, like, an actual shooting guard and a center, it would be kind of cool to see. So they'll have another top draft pick next year, and I imagine next year they're going to look pretty good, but I want to keep an eye on Cade. I definitely do. Heat crushed the Pelicans. I brought this up because Jimmy Butler just had a huge night, 31, 10, and 10. If he does that, they're never, ever going to lose. That's kind of what they did when they went to the finals. Like, he just got really hot. Bam didn't even play in this game. Pelicans are the worst team in the league, probably. I mean, they're definitely up there, although the Knicks are trying really hard to get there. Jokes. But if you're Zion, do you even, like, I mean, of course you come back. It's only 16 games into the year, but it's like, why? Just fucking, they should just tank and trade him or something. Like, this is so broken. They got nothing. They just have, like, they have some players that you're like, okay, I could see, like, Josh Hart can play. He's a good bench piece. He's playing 40 minutes for you. I don't know if you want that. Alexander Walker can play. Valanciunas can play. Herb Jones has looked pretty good as a rookie, honestly. Oh, we were just talking about Tomas Satoransky. I didn't even know he was there. But it just doesn't work. You watch them and you're like, ugh. And they will look better when Zion comes back, but is this the way you want to build it? Like, they need a really big reset button, I think. And I don't know what you do, because this ain't going to, even at its best, if you have Valanciunas, Zion, Ingram, Hart, you don't have a point guard. You could have just signed Jrue Holiday. They just didn't. They got 1 million picks for that, but they're going to be 30th pick in the draft kind of stuff. So what is that really going to do? I just don't see what this team does. The Heat, on the other hand, I really, really like. Hero, Butler, Kyle Lowry didn't play in this one either. Duncan Robinson. So you have 4 ball handling guards. You have PJ Tucker, who doesn't need the ball ever. You have Bam, who can handle the ball. Dedmon's a great backup big. And I don't love this bench. They'll retool it. They'll probably get some other guys in here. But this is a hard-nosed team. They're not going to be pushed over in the East. And I like them, and I just wanted to shout out Jimmy Butler, because if he gets going and he can do this kind of stuff, he very rarely scores 31 with 10 and 10. And I know they had 2 primary ball handlers out in Bam and Lowry. But if you can find a way to make those 3 be a big 3 and then fill in the gaps with Hero and Robinson to shoot, Tucker to defend, Dedmon to be backup depth and defend, and then you maybe get another, instant offense guy for the bench, and that's what Hero should be when Lowry's in. But even if you got another one, a dynamic wing, an athletic wing, I can see this team going pretty far. We look back at the standings and you're like, well, who else do I need to contend with? If we're not talking about Nets and Bucks, are the Heat the 3rd best team in the East? I'm willing to say the Heat are better than the Bulls, and I'm willing to say they're better than the Wizards. If I'm talking about the top 6 for the playoff, because the 7 through 10 is the play-in, I could definitely go Bucks, Nets, Heat, Bulls, Wizards, and a 6th spot is up for grab. It should be the Sixers. And then that seems to be right. That's pretty much where I'm at. The West feels a lot more wild, but for what it's worth, I would go Golden State, Phoenix, in no particular order. Utah will definitely be in the top 6. Dallas, I don't think will. Denver, I'm not entirely sure. Clippers have played well, but Kawhi's not coming back, and they're going to lose some games eventually. Lakers, 4. And then some of these teams have to make it. I mean, Denver probably will, 5. And then the 6th spot, same as the East, is pretty open. You could get the Blazers, you could get the Grizzlies, you could get the Clippers, you could get Dallas, and that's about it, because the Rockets and the Pelicans, I mean, the bottom of the West is really, really ugly. The bottom of the East is ugly too, but at least the Magic and the Pistons to me are feistier than the Rockets and the Pelicans. Let's talk about the Rockets. First of all right, this is going to be my last NBA rant, and then we're going to talk football. What the Rockets are doing is horrible. The Rockets are, not only are they tanking, they are ruining everything they are even trying to do. Tillman Fertitta has not been a good owner ever. I'm pretty sure that's the guy that used to own the UFC. Right? Did I make that up? Let's see. Purchased the Rockets in 2017. I thought the Fertitta brothers were the UFC. There's no way I made that up. Fertitta, UFC. Yeah. They're the ones that sold. Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta. Oh, okay, maybe it's their brother. Okay. And then Tillman is the one that owns. There's 3 of them. In any case, he's allowing this to happen under his watch. It's just disgusting. They have nothing. They have John Wall on their roster, who's making $44 million this year, and he's fine and healthy. I'm pretty sure he played a lot last year, didn't he? And didn't he look pretty good? He's on this team. He is on the roster. He travels with them and sits on the sideline in a suit. He scored 20 points per game with 7 assists last year. If you suit John Wall up, the team's still awful. It doesn't matter. You're not losing anything. You're still tanking. It's fine. You're bad enough. You can just be normal bad. Like the Thunder are bad, but they're 6-8, and at least they're trying to build a culture of winning because they know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an important player, and so is Lou Dort, and Giddey has looked pretty good. They want these guys to grow in an environment where they actually understand how to play NBA basketball. The Rockets don't seem to care about that at all. All they care about is losing games, which doesn't make any bit of sense. I'm on board with tanking if you think you're terrible. Fine. I don't love it, and I wish the NBA would do something where the highest draft pick goes to the team that just missed the playoffs. I did it in my fantasy basketball league for years, and a bunch of people do. And so if you have 10 playoff teams, the 11th team gets the first overall pick rather than the worst team in the league, because then it inspires teams to compete no matter what. And if you're the worst team in the league, then you tanked so far and you're okay with a middle draft pick because you're not even trying at this point, just like the Rockets aren't. So I'd love to see that change, but that's a little more radical. The problem here is they don't have a point guard on the roster. They have DJ Augustine. He's your only point guard that is an actual point guard at this point, and he's probably 37 years old. He's 34, but he's been in the league a long time, and his best days are behind him. He's not even really playing for them. He played 15 minutes in this game because they got blown out. I mean, they have guys that you need to teach how to play. They have Eric Gordon on this team. If you're starting John Wall, Eric Gordon, Jalen Green, who has looked really good and promising and is maybe the most athletic player in the league, which is ridiculous. Christian Wood, and whether it's Jayshawn Tate, Daniel House, Kenyon Martin Jr., whoever. Porter didn't play in this game, but whoever it is. These guys can learn how to play because they're in an actual up-tempo John Wall offense. You're already paying him, and that lineup, while interesting and competitive, and you can learn something about these players and actually develop them, it's not going to compete. You're still going to be the worst team in the league. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But to do this, to throw them out there and not care at all when they have no one to run an offense and all they do is just like, we either run or we jack up a three or Christian Wood will just take an ISO. They're not, this is the grossest. The process was really kind of gross with the Sixers, but at least they had Embiid and he was hurt and stuff, so you had to work your way around like why this is happening. They weren't sitting down a $50 million player for no reason at all. I don't really understand why that's allowed per se. The NBA should be looking at that. Like, why? Why is he's fine? He's not hurt. I don't understand it. And even if the NBA did that, they would just buy him out, I guess, which is insane also. I don't think they're waiting for someone to trade for the contract. And if they were, you would want to play him and showcase him. I don't know. It just is so weird. It's like, why do this? You have Tice on this team. He'll probably get traded at the deadline, so they'll have fewer people. Christian Wood could get traded. They're just... Do you ever want to be good? Because if you put Jalen Green with a real point guard and you get to see what he runs in a real offense, isn't that better? Don't you know better what to do for next year? How long do you want this tank to go on? Eric Gordon could get traded. This team could get worse. This is the most egregious, awful basketball I have... You watch them and you're like, what is this? Because they don't know what they're doing because they don't have anyone to run the show. They're just a bunch of guys out there. They're kids. They're not even guys. And Christian Wood is so good, and they're wasting him too. And it's like, this team could be fun and interesting if you put John Wall in there. I really do think that. I know John Wall's past his prime, but he's a professional who's made all-star teams and gone into the playoffs. You're not going to be any better. What's the downside? How bad do you need to be when you're tanking? You don't need to be this bad because you're just teaching these kids how to lose. That's all you're doing. And then their whole career, they're trying to work back out of that. You're digging them this huge hole. And they never learn how to run real offense. And then when Jalen Green finally is putting up... What is he averaging this year? 14.4 points per game. That'll go up. So let's say he averages 18 points per game. He's going to feel good about himself, which he should because he's doing this with no help. But also... You're giving this false sense of what's going on. He's scoring 18 meaningless points per game. Maybe if you allowed him to have a point guard and get in rhythm a little bit and figure out what spots he needs to be in on an actual competitive team, there wouldn't be as many growing pains down the road when you get your point guard and he doesn't know how to play with him. So I don't want to hear them cry about it later. This is horrible and really stupid and fixable. That's it. Let's talk football. And then we'll get into picks, and we'll hit the road. We will talk more about this game when we lead off tomorrow. I like to do it in hindsight a little more, but I like to give my thoughts before the game goes on. And if you're watching on YouTube and you've missed it, this is all the more reason to join in on Twitch. Talk to me live. Same thing for the picks. You want to get the picks before these games tip? Come to Twitch, twitch.tv/MikeTheMush. Join us. We can chat about it. We can deliberate. I can even pull you into the voice chat if we really want to, if you have some good takes. But I appreciate you watching on YouTube either way if you can't get to it. But the live thing, always better. The Patriots should dominate this game. They're way better. The Falcons got absolutely blown out last week. You wonder how they'll bounce back. I don't believe in Matt Ryan against Bill Belichick. I just don't. I think he turns the ball over way too much. I think they can move the ball down the field. Their problem really is that Calvin Ridley isn't there. Cordarrelle Patterson doesn't look like he's going to play. I don't think we've gotten an update on that quite yet, but he said it's an uphill battle. Cordarrelle. So I'm assuming he's out, and even if he's in, it's going to be limited. I don't know what they really do. He does so much for them. He's their prime offensive threat out of the backfield, both catching the ball and running the ball. I don't see how they're going to run it very much against this Patriots team that's bigger and stronger than they are. The Patriots are just going to dominate them physically the whole entire game, right? The Falcons are like built on speed and finesse, and the Patriots are built on pure power. And when you don't have Ridley or Cordarrelle Patterson, I think Pitts could have a big day. I really do. But Belichick knows that they're going to target Pitts a ton, right? So they're going to force Russell Gage to beat them or something. I just don't trust Matt Ryan to not turn it over. Even if Pitts has 10 catches and 130 yards and a touchdown, I just don't necessarily know if it matters. The Patriots are just going to beat them at the point of attack and run it down their throats. So I like the Pats. Giving the 6.5 on a Thursday is a little bit scary. These Thursday games are wonky. The only thing I'll say is that I trust Bill Belichick to have his team ready more than I trust any other coach to have their team ready. I really think the Patriots have Super Bowl aspirations. I know that's crazy, but this team is so similar to the 2001 team to me. And the God's honest truth is that Mac Jones is ahead of where Tom Brady was in 2001. And I don't think that means that his ceiling is as high. And I think it's natural that all quarterbacks are ahead of where all quarterbacks were in 2001. Things have just progressed and gotten more sophisticated. But Mac is doing more, and they're giving him the keys to the car a little more than Brady had back in the day. They went on a spending spree in the offseason. This is the team they wanted. They plugged up all the holes. Hunter Henry's a good security blanket for them. They're short a receiver for sure, and they didn't go get one. That'll hurt them. I don't know if it'll hurt them in this game, because I just don't see the Falcons being able to do enough defensively to get enough possessions to actually score. And then even if they do get enough possessions, I imagine Matt Ryan will turn it over against a Belichick defense a couple times. So I feel more comfortable in the money line with the Patriots, of course, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But I'll lay the 6.5 for pool purposes and maybe even in our picks. So I just think Damian Harris is back in this game. Him and Ramondre Stevenson are powerful runners. Their offensive line is very powerful. The Atlanta defensive line is horrible. And I just think they run it down their throat. I don't see why they would do anything else. And when you can do that, Mac Jones is going to feel comfortable. You'll get some play action. They should score 24, 28, 32 points. And I think Atlanta can score. That's the only way that the 6.5 will go haywire, is like if it's a 10-point game and it feels like the Patriots have run away on them completely, and then all of a sudden Falcons score and it finishes as a 3-point game. Didn't they do that against the Chargers? I think they did. It's a similar game. Yeah, it ended as a 3-point game. But the Patriots absolutely crushed in this game. They ran for 142 yards. Harris looked good. Their defense looked fine. Herbert didn't play well. 2 picks, 18 for 35. Both quarterbacks were 18 for 35. That's bizarre. But it just felt like the Patriots were in control of this game the whole entire time. And, like, this easily could have been a 10-point win that just ended up as a 3-point win. I don't know if it was a late score that did it, but I just mean that style of game. Yeah, it was. Fourth quarter with literally 40 seconds left. 24-yard pass from Herbert. And it was a 10-point game that became a 3-point game. And you're like, well, the Patriots dominated. Who cares what the final score is? Well, if you're betting the game, you probably care. So I could see that being the case in this one, too, especially on a Thursday. But I feel more comfortable with the minus 6.5 than I do putting any money on the Falcons after they got their doors blown off in Dallas last week. I just think they're not a good team. I don't think they have been a good team. I don't think Matt Ryan is good. He's way past his prime. And without Ridley or Patterson, I just feel like there's a better chance that they can't get it going offensively and the Patriots just run it downhill on them the same way the Niners did to the Rams. Like, once they get a lead, they're just going to pound the football. And I'd rather be on that side of it. So we'll see what happens. We will definitely see what happens. But the picks, the Mush picks for today, we got 3 different bets. And I like them all to varying degrees. The first one is simple. Patriots money line. We just talked about it. Plus Warriors money line at the Cavs. The Cavs are also very banged up. Sexton hurt. Kevin Love is back. But Evan Mobley is out, who I think is awesome for them and very necessary to guard a team like the Warriors. He can do a lot of things defensively and be the anchor of that defense that they won't have. Jared Allen has been sick. He may or may not play. But he could be rusty coming back, and I just think the Warriors are rolling, and they catch the Cavs at a really bad time. Even though I like the Cavs, I really do. But the Warriors are just better, and they're healthier. So parlay those two, you get minus 185. The odds aren't great, but I think they're both such safe picks that I really like that. So load up on Patriots plus Warriors. The other game I really like by itself, the Grizzlies are a pick'em against the Clippers. This spread doesn't make sense to me because the Clippers have no one playing. They do have Paul George, and they have Reggie Jackson, and they have Eric Bledsoe. So they have their 1, 2, and 3. But they're missing Batum in this one probably, and their depth chart has just been decimated by injury. They don't have enough off the bench. You're going to see guys playing in this game that you're like, Isaiah Hartenstein's getting 30 minutes. I mean, he's okay and all, but the Grizzlies are actually getting healthier. Dillon Brooks came back. They have to deal with the Clippers. I just think this bench unit for the Clippers, it's just an emergency unit. These guys are going to get blown off the floor. And so if the starters can play even, I think the Grizzlies bench is going to take advantage of an injured Clippers team on the road in a hostile place to play against Ja, who plays really hard. The whole Grizzlies team plays really hard. I think they're healthier, and I just think they take care of business. And I don't have to lay any points against an injured team. Paul George has been playing at like a borderline MVP level, but give me the Grizzlies with no spread. A quick minus 110 there by themselves. And then we got a long shot parlay, which I'm having some fun with. I think it's fun. Patriots minus 6. We bought half a point there against the Falcons. I'd rather have 6 than 6.5. I took St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies. Who doesn't like the Bonnies? They're good. They've been good for years now. They have a good program. They're in the tournament a lot. They're against Boise State, but it's a neutral court, and the money line is attainable. It's not that bad. So I'm putting the Patriots minus 6 with the Bonnies money line. I took the West Virginia money line at home against Elon. I love West Virginia against bad teams because they just swarm them with the press and dominate. That's just a sweetener. They're like minus 800 on the money line or something ridiculous. It's just to sweeten the odds a little bit. And then the other big one is Kansas minus 24 at home against Stony Brook. I got pride for Long Island. I do. Stony Brook Seawolves. Seawolf is not a thing. I mean, come on. A Seahawk, fine. A Seawolf, what are we doing? It would be scary if it were a thing. Mermaids, look out. But I just think this spread should be more towards 30. It's the same reason I took Duke against Gardner-Webb, and they won by about 40. To me, this is one of the teams that can win the championship against a team that is not in the top 200 teams in the country. And if that spread isn't more than 25, generally I feel pretty comfortable with it. And I think they can get out of control. The only thing, I usually like them more around 20 than 24, because if the Kansas bench comes in at the end for 5 minutes, who knows if Stony Brook hits a couple shots. But the reason I like it is because those four parlayed: Patriots minus 6, St. Bonaventure money line on a neutral court, West Virginia money line at home against Elon, and Kansas minus 24 at home against Stony Brook is plus 410. So you could sprinkle a little bit on it and try to hit big. So those are the 3 picks. We will review them at the top tomorrow. We will also recap the NFL game. And then Friday football, baby. We will go through every single game. We'll make our picks. We'll come up with what our exact perfect mush picks will be for the weekend. We're going to get backtrack on football. The other picks have been good. Basketball, we've been hot. We're getting it back together with football. It starts tonight. We will be back tomorrow. Check out that stream. Twitch, YouTube, MikeTheMush, at MikeMush Sports on Twitter and Instagram. There's nothing left to say. I'm done plugging. I do enough plugging. Follow, chat. I'll see you here tomorrow. Peace out.